Hey tankers, and welcome back to World of Tanks with PR154. Today we're following Kung Fu Wombat of the Renegades clan in the Tier 8 American heavy tank M3Y. This is one of the series of tanks from Tier 7 and up that joined the American heavy lineup in January of 2022, comprising M2Y, M3Y, M6Y and M5Y. A little bit out of order, but that's not what's important right now. The characteristic feature of this vehicle line is the reserve track mechanic, which means if your primary tracks are knocked out, you still retain some mobility, albeit you lose about 40% of it. Now your reserve track can still get knocked off and fully permatrack you, but with the reserve track still in effect, you do have the ability to get out of trouble and hopefully avoid that follow-up shots that ends up knocking out your reserve track in addition. So this gives the Americans three different heavy tank lines, ending in T110E5, T57 Heavy, and M5Y. The T57 line, it only comprises two heavies at the end, and is characterized by the autoloader mechanic. The differences between T110E5 line and M5Y are a little bit more subtle, and there aren't actually any hard and fast rules about where the two differ. Moreover, the T110E5 line, or at least its predecessors, are actually due for a bit of buffing love in the Supertest server, but more on that later. For now, we've got Kung Fu Wombat making their approach to the main combat area. Notice how he's used the edge of the coastline to try to keep the hull down, because he does have quite a strong turret here with M3Y. He's blocked the first shot from TNH 105, made a penetrating shot in return, but unfortunately copped one on the way through, and I guess sometimes that's just a side effect of what you've got to do to get into an optimal position. Sometimes you do have to kind of bleed a little bit. A bit of follow-up fire from Tiger 88. Not really sure why they're firing high explosive shells at them, but that's entirely their business. But this is a good position for them to play from. Provided they don't stick their ass out too far, because you've got a very high chance that you'll have enemy tank destroyers lurking around that K7 position in the south, and it looks like he's stuck his ass out just a little bit too far. He's actually lost about 1,000 hit points now. So can't take too much more abuse this game, but still, he's managing to get the bead on the TNH 105-1000 and getting that fairly consistent damage into it. He's now accounted for about 1,000 hit points on that vehicle as well. And things aren't getting all that much better for the TNH 105-1000. It's trying to hull down, but with that massive cupola there, it is just not quite as effective in doing that. Not that Kung Fu Wombat is without his own cupola. And the cupola on this thing is actually quite weak, about 135 millimeters of armor. But for what it's worth, he seems to be able to maintain the gun control. He's maintaining the movement, and he's given this TNH 105-1000 an absolute toweling here. He's just waiting for them to just pause long enough to get this killing shot in, and manages to send it back to the garage. Now, he's certainly not alone in this position. He's one of three heavy tanks on this team that are up the front between the AMX M449 and the Lerva, and they're generating a bit of a crossfire here. He's managing to catch the side of the Emil 1, which can otherwise be quite a tough customer, but once you see the side of Emil turrets, they can be really quite dependable indeed. Given his hit point position at the moment, though, this is probably the best use of the vehicle. He just doesn't have the reserve of hit points available to trade down on it. So hanging back and waiting for those shots of opportunity, probably the best idea under the circumstances. All the while, the fight is still developing on other flanks. We can see our Char Future 4 has been knocked out by the enemy GSAW 1008. Unfortunately, we don't have vision on the opposing flank at C1 there. So to that end, we're somewhat forced to focus on this battle at hand. Not that there's a shortage of stuff to talk about on this flank, because we can see that Emil 1 here has repositioned after eating two shots to the side now from M3Y. The AMX M49, however, has had its hit points drawn down. It's now on 291. Make that 66 hit points thanks to AMX 65T. Make that 0 hit points thanks to the Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger. And Lerva absolutely buggered up there by the ISU 152 as it's pressed forward. Emil 1 leaving a bit of lower frontal plate hanging up in the air, but a bit of a swing and a miss there for Kung Fu Wombat. They are following up on the ISU 152, however. That'll be an important gun to knock out and treat with a serious bit of urgency. They are one-shottable to the ISU SU-152, but do manage to bounce that incoming shell. Scorpion G manages to catch the side of ISU-152, however, sending it packing. But as far as the enemy are concerned, there's only one-shottable heavy tank in the forward line, so they push in, but they send their lowest hit point tank in first, AMX-65T, dying with just 37 hit points available. Emil 1 has a slightly larger reserve of hit points, but Kung Fu Wombat gets to work on it. The Scorpion G follows up, and Kung Fu Wombat reloads and knocks it out for their third kill of the game. And this is not a good situation at all for the enemy Jagdtiger 88, who now appears to be all alone on this flank. Kung Fu Wombat takes another shot out of it, and there's not too much they can do here. They can't push on Kung Fu Wombat because Kung Fu Wombat can call upon the Scorpion G to put shots into its side. It's not having a hell of a lot of luck penetrating Kung Fu Wombat frontally either, and conversely, Kung Fu Wombat appears to be going straight through the front of the premium Tier 8 German heavy tank destroyer. Now, as this trade on choose, it's probably worth noting that you do get two decent guns available to you on M3Y. What Kung Fu Wombat is running at the moment is the 90mm gun T208 rifled. It puts out a higher damage per minute, it has higher penetration, it's also more accurate, but at the end of the day it's still a 90mm gun, which can feel a little bit undergunned at Tier 8 on a heavy tank. To this end, your top gun is the 105mm T254Y3, which has slightly less damage per minute, less penetration, but causes a more respectable 320 hit points of damage, which I guess is more becoming of a heavy tank in this tier. And not only are you getting 223mm of penetration with the standard APCR, you're getting a whopping 290mm of penetration with the heat shells. Some of which he'd used against Jagdtiger 88, but he's kind of finding his groove now, and as Jagdtiger 88 is only throwing high explosive shells at them once again, he can afford to take a few more risks and poke out a bit further and make sure he can get those lower frontal plate shots. He's managed to really work the Jagdtiger 88 down, but the enemy's also worked the SU-130PM down to just 66 hit points, getting knocked out by the G-Saw, but there's Shah Future 4 going down to the Ferdinand in the meantime. Jagdtiger 88, one-shottable for Kung Fu Wombat, and he sends it back to the garage for kill number 4. So having secured victory here on the front line, Kung Fu Wombat's got a bit of a choice. Well, not really, because if he goes forward, he's probably going to get eaten up by the Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger, so pushing on, probably not a great idea. We still don't know exactly where that G-Saw 1008 is. It could be lurking in the background, so we've done a bit of a wiggling, we've looked for a bit of a sixth sense indicator, doesn't appear to be anything going on, so they will return to try to give the tank destroyers a bit of backup. Once again, returning via this little bit of coast to try to keep that hull down and try to keep enemy eyes away. Now, G-Saw 1008 has been spotted, and unfortunately it's been spotted bearing down on Kung Fu Wombat's platoon mate Apache Bill in the Stridsvagn S1. Unfortunately, we're now operating at the extremes of our camera range here with the free cam mod that we've been using in a lot of our replays lately, but we are just able to get there in time to see G-Saw 1008 take the final piece out of Apache Bill. But that was the last shot in G-Saw 1008's locker, and Scorpion charges in whilst G-Saw is on its reload, does a swing and a miss initially, but it's got all the time in the world to get another shell in the tube. You got 490 hit point alpha strike out of Scorpion, which is no problem at all in shutting down G-Saw 1008. This now assigns Kung Fu Wombat's team a considerable numerical advantage, as well as map control, having taken the mid and both flanks quite completely. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see the one line, we just didn't have the replay information available for that on this particular occasion. Now, as we crawl towards the finish line, let's take a look at the other Tier 8 American heavy tank in comparison. So with M3Y, what you get is an extra 120 hit points per minute in DPM. With the 105s, they're still running the same gun. It is worth noting that the gun handling is slightly better on T32 with a 2-second aim time and 0.21 meters per 100 meters in dynamic dispersion characteristics, slightly better on turret traverse as well. In terms of mobility, M3Y is a little bit faster in forward and reverse, but has a considerably lower power to weight ratio than T32. So while it's slower, it certainly realises that top speed in much shorter order. T32 also has a slightly higher hit point pool, but all other characteristics are more or less the same. It is worth noting, however, that T32 is due for some buffing love, and current indications in the Supertest suggest that they'll be getting another 7 to 10mm of penetration on its standard and premium shells, and significantly improved aim time and gun handling. So what we're likely to see, I guess, is a distinction between M3Y and T32, in that M3Y, thanks to its 90mm gun, will end up with higher damage per minute and penetration statistics at a cost of its gun handling, while T32 will present a very stable gun platform with a fairly straightforward and easy to come to grips with playstyle. Into the end game now. It appears the enemy was a tank short before they even started, with the T54 Mod 1 being away from keyboard the entire game. Kung Fu Wombat has been slamming a few pot shots into it, but the Sante C45 that finishes it off. Rheinmetall Borsig Waffenträger makes its appearance, however, knocking out the Sante but eating a shell in turn. This leaves it in a one-shottable position for T28 prototype and its 120mm main armament, and it unalives the Borsig for the victory kill. So while it might have been a slightly underwhelming finish there for Kung Fu Wombat, all the hard work they really did at the front end of the game and really enabled the team to secure victory. Let's take a quick look at the results. And for their efforts, they have picked up an Ace Mastery badge. This places Kung Fu Wombat of the Renegades clan in the top 1% of players by experience earned in the M3Y in the last week on the Asia server. They've also picked up a couple of Battle Heroes medals as well. They got the Cool-Headed medal, surviving at least 10 ricochets and non-penetrations in a row from enemy players. And if we have a look at this, He's had 5 ricochets from the Emil 1. He's had 5 ricochets from the Jagdtiger 88 and 4 ricochets from the TNH 105 1000, and obviously collected quite a few of those in a row. He's also picked up the Steel War medal, where he needs to receive the most hits. It needs to be at least 11 out of any player on the team. Total potential damage needs to be at least 1,000 hit points, and you need to survive. But he certainly picked up more than 1,000 hit points of blocking damage. In this case, over 4,800 hit points of blocking damage this game. He's also picked up the High Caliber medal for accounting for at least 20% of the total hit point pool of enemy vehicles, in this case over 5,300 hit points of damage inflicted on the enemy. He's also picked up a few badges of merit here. Duelist for destroying at least 2 enemy vehicles that have caused damage to his vehicle in turn. He's picked up the Fighter medal for accounting for at least 4 enemy vehicles in one battle, and 4 is exactly what he's done. The Fire for Effect medal, which goes hand in hand with the High Caliber medal, and the Shellproof medal, where total damage blocked has exceeded the hit points of this vehicle. Again, with over 4,800 hit points of damage blocked, he'd be achieving that in spades. Having a look to the team scores, this was quite a significant top placement by experience. Nearly 1,600 experience earned in M3Y this game. Absolutely fantastic result. At a distant following, they have Emil 2, who took 3 kills for 3,900 hit points of damage from top tiered, and Pico 78 in the Rheinmetall Scorpion, providing some excellent backup for Kung Fu Wombat over the course of this battle. Having a look to the enemy teams, we have Taki 89 in GSAW 1008 with an epic 5-kill collection with nearly 3,700 hit points of damage inflicted on Kung Fu Wombat's team, as well as IS-32, who didn't manage to take any kills, but a whopping 4,100 hit points of damage inflicted from Tier 9, representing the interests of their team quite well, but not carrying the day today. Having a look at the detailed report, Kung Fu Wombat on a standard account, but thankfully had some battle payments running, otherwise they would have broken pretty well even on this one. There was a bit of a repair bill, a few consumables used between small first aid kits and repair kits, and a bit of an ammunition bill as well, a couple of heat shells, requiring expenditure over the course of this battle, but still a lot of shells downrange all the same. So very well done there to Kung Fu Wombat of the Renegades clan in the Tier 8 American Heavy Tank M3Y. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Now, to those of you who've just swung by the channel again recently, the battle report style of replay, unfortunately it means I can't punch out 3 replays a week on YouTube at the moment, but what we are doing on my Twitch channel, and the details are down below, we're taking the best 3 replays that we receive over the course of the week on our Discord submission platform, link to that one also below, and we are featuring them on our ANZ server Saturday SitRep stream, and we'll post those replays that we've covered live in the Discord channel as well. In the meantime, thanks again for your support, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care out there.